In Laboratory Reddit, today's story is...
While recovering from an accident that nearly cost me my life, I found my wife's messages with the neighbor. "We can't leave him now. It would look bad to abandon a disabled person." I discovered they were planning their life together, waiting for me to get better so they could leave me. I'm 34 years old and have been married to Carla, 32, for 8 years. We've been together for 12 years since we met in college. Everything changed about 8 months ago when my life took a radical turn. I work as a construction site manager, and last summer I suffered a very serious accident. A scaffold collapsed and I was trapped in the debris. It was as serious as it sounds. Multiple fractures in both legs, broken pelvis, and spinal injuries. The doctor said I was lucky to survive, although they warned that recovery would be long, painful, and uncertain. The first weeks after the accident were the worst. I was hospitalized, completely immobile, depending on nurses for everything, even basic needs. I had never felt so helpless. It wasn't just the physical pain, but the emotional pain as well. Carla was incredible at first. She came every day, sat by my side, and gave me strength to overcome this together. I clung to her support. She was my hope. But as time passed, her support began to diminish. At first, I thought it wasn't anything important. She had her life, her job, and a house to maintain. I could only imagine how exhausted she must have been. I assumed her less frequent visits were her way of taking a breather, but they became more and more spaced out. Daily visits became every other day, and then maybe once or twice a week. She would send me messages saying she was busy or exhausted after work. I didn't want to seem needy or complain, so I simply accepted it, telling myself everything would get better when I was discharged and we were under the same roof again. About a month after the accident, Carla mentioned a new neighbor who had moved in next to our house, a guy named Jeremias. He was 36, divorced, and worked from home. According to her, he seemed like a good person, and honestly, I was glad she had someone nearby to lean on. Apparently, he had been a great help, mowing the lawn, fixing a leak in the roof, and even helping her with groceries. At first, I didn't find anything suspicious. What husband wouldn't be grateful that someone was helping his wife when he couldn't? But Carla kept mentioning him during her visits. She would casually comment on something he had done or said, and over time, I noticed her tone changing. She seemed excited when she talked about him. I never thought badly of it. On one occasion, she even brought Jeremias to the hospital to introduce him as our neat amaxis. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy, friendly, relaxed, with no apparent ulterior motives. Nothing about him raised suspicions. I even remember joking with him about how lucky we were to have such a helpful neighbor, and he took it with humor, saying he was happy to help. And honestly, I appreciated it. With everything that was happening, having someone to trust seemed like a blessing. Months passed, and I was still in the hospital. My progress was slow, and each day felt like an uphill battle. Carla continued to visit me, but less and less frequently, and the moments we shared felt different. She was physically present, but emotionally, she seemed to have one foot out of the relationship. I wanted to believe that when I returned home, everything would go back to normal. But deep down, I couldn't shake that feeling of loneliness. It was eating me up inside. I missed her in ways I didn't even know were possible. I wanted to feel her close, have her by my side, remember the life we had built together before the accident. Instead, I was trapped in a hospital bed, isolated and helpless, watching as she drifted further and further away. Finally, after 6 long months, I was discharged. I hadn't recovered my strength by a long shot. I was in a wheelchair most of the time, used a walker for short distances, and my body still felt fragile. But I was going home. I thought that would be the moment when everything would start to feel normal again. But as soon as I crossed the front door, I knew something was wrong. The house felt different. It wasn't something obvious at first, just a strange energy in the air. Carla was there, but her presence felt dim. She was no longer the same woman I kissed when I left home the day of the accident. She was distant, as if there was an invisible wall between us. I tried to convince myself it was just this stress of adapting to this new reality. I mean, not only had my life changed, hers had too, but the small things started to add up. She seemed constantly distracted, always on her phone, and she would startle every time I entered the room in my wheelchair. She stopped staying to talk with me, and often left the room as soon as I entered. And then there were those nights when she told me she was working or catching up on tasks, but I knew it wasn't true. The glow of her phone screen in the middle of the night told another story, and she kept mentioning Jeremias, His name came up constantly in conversations, and not casually. It was always, Jeremias helped with this, or Jeremias fixed that. It was as if, suddenly, he was the solution to all problems. At first, it didn't bother me. I thought she was just trying to fill the gaps where I could no longer help. One day, about 2 weeks ago, I wanted to look something up on a computer, and Carla's laptop was nearby. My phone was charging, so I decided to use hers for a few minutes. While browsing, a Facebook message notification appeared. It was from Jeremias. I don't know why I clicked on it, but I'm grateful I did, because otherwise, I would have continued living in ignorance. There were hundreds of messages from what I can only call an extramarital affair. Carla and Jeremias had been having an affair the entire time I was in the hospital. Not only were they hiding, but they had been together in my house as if they were the owners. They had had sex in our bed, which I couldn't even climb into anymore. Jeremias had asked her several times if she was thinking of leaving me, and her answers destroyed me. She said she wasn't sure, that they needed to wait until I recovered a bit more before making a decision. She said that leaving me while I was still disabled would make her look like the villain of the story. One message stood out above the rest. It said she couldn't wait for me to get better, so she could finally move on. They made fun of me, called me useless, and wondered if I would ever work again. Carla complained about how hard it was to be a nurse while I recovered, said she felt trapped. She told Jeremias she wanted someone who would make her feel alive again, and that she was tired of dealing with me and my problems. And all this had been happening while I lay in a hospital bed. When I spoke with Carla that night, I didn't know what to expect. Whether she would finally leave me or if she would regret what happened. I wasn't looking for remorse to forgive her, but I needed to make it clear that everything was over. Her reaction was defensive, even angry, but the worst part was that she thought there was nothing wrong with what she had done. She said she had stayed when most would have left, that I should be grateful she hadn't left me right after the accident. For her, being by my side despite our marriage vows was a great sacrifice that few women would make. She said she felt undervalued, overwhelmed, and that she needed someone like Jeremias to remind her what it was like to feel alive again. She didn't see the betrayal for what it really was. She only saw herself as someone forced to live a life she no longer wanted. That night, I went to my brother's house. I didn't know what else to do. I was living with a person without empathy, who didn't care that I was in a hospital due to a serious accident. It tormented me to think of all those months when she came to the hospital, acting as if she cared, while she was hiding with him. Those moments when she told me she was too tired or busy to stay longer were because she was exhausted after being with him. My brother thinks I should hire a divorce lawyer and start the process to cut ties with her as soon as possible. That's what I plan to do first thing tomorrow, though I don't think I can get a lawyer immediately, at least not one I can afford. So this is my miserable life. I still have to physically recover from the accident while suffering another fall and a new blow from my wife. The difference is that the latter was not an accident, but a deliberate, calculated, and cruel decision by a person I trusted. Update 1. A lot has happened in the last 48 hours. After posting my story, I took some of your advice and started documenting everything. I already have screenshots of the messages Carla and Jeremias exchanged on Facebook. It was one of the first things I did after discovering the betrayal. I emailed them to myself and saved them in a secure folder. I also started recording any interaction with Carla, when she calls or leaves voice messages. My phone has a recorder, so I thought it was better to be safe than sorry. You never know what she might say, and now anything can be useful in a divorce trial. I also contacted my employer. They have been very understanding during my recovery, and I asked them for copies of all documents related to my accident, including medical records, workers' compensation papers, and the rehabilitation timeline. I want to make sure I have everything in order in case Carla tries to attack me financially. The workers' compensation isn't much, but it's the only thing keeping me afloat right now. The most important step I took was meeting with a divorce lawyer yesterday. I think I found the right one because she seems very competent. She specializes in cases involving infidelity in special circumstances, and mine certainly is. The consultation was revealing. She explained that Carla's actions, especially having abandoned me emotionally and financially during a medical crisis, could carry weight if we go to trial. Infidelity doesn't always have much legal weight, but in my case, it might. The lawyer also reassured me that the workers' compensation settlement should be protected in the divorce, since it's specifically linked to my injury. That was a great relief, because honestly, I've been very worried about how I'm going to manage financially if Carla leaves me with nothing. Since I left, Carla has been bombarding me with contradictory messages. She has sent me texts accusing me of exaggerating and blowing things out of proportion. And in the next message, I receive a tearful audio telling me how much she loves me and that we can fix it. For her, it was just part of her needs as a woman during a period when I wasn't available. The worst part? Jeremias himself tried to contact me. He sent me a message saying he wanted to explain his side of the story and that I shouldn't believe everything I read in those messages. I didn't bother to respond. I blocked both numbers immediately. I don't want to hear excuses. What happened, happened, and that's what matters now. The most unexpected thing happened today. Jeremias' ex-wife contacted my sister-in-law through my brother. It turns out she's a close friend of hers and found out what happened. What a small world. She found me through my brother's Facebook page and sent me a message saying she had heard about what happened. She wanted me to know that this wasn't the first time Jeremias had gotten involved with a married woman. Apparently, he has a pattern of behavior. He takes advantage of vulnerable women, usually wives of men with medical problems or deployed military. She told me her own experience and even offered to provide documentation from her divorce, where Jeremias' predatory history is recorded. I don't know what to think of him anymore. At first, I just saw him as a jerk who betrayed me, but now he seems much worse. It's as if his fetish was destroying marriages. I can't thank my brother and his wife enough. They have been a fundamental pillar. They've been helping me not only with physical therapy, taking me to my appointments, but also feeding me plenty of home-cooked food. Their house isn't exactly adapted for someone in my condition. The guest room is on the second floor, but he's been working non-stop to convert his office into a bedroom for me. He even bought a portable ramp so I can move around more easily. He also contacted our parents to tell them what was happening. They arrive tomorrow by plane to help me, and I'm looking forward to seeing them, although I'm embarrassed to tell them the whole story. My mother is a retired nurse, so she already offered to help with my physical care. Just knowing she'll be here makes me feel less overwhelmed. My father is more of the silent support type, but he's always been someone I can lean on when things get complicated. Tomorrow I have another meeting with the lawyer to officially start the divorce paperwork. I don't know how I'm going to rebuild my life from this point, especially with all the physical challenges ahead of me. But at least now, standing up from my chair is easier. I have one less dead weight in my life. Nothing has turned out as I imagined when I was in the hospital, but life takes away and gives, I'm sure of that. Update 2. These last few days have been almost unbearable. My parents arrived, and although I was relieved to see them, that hasn't completely improved my situation. My mother, who is normally strong and serene, broke down in tears when she saw me. She had already seen me in the hospital, but she felt very bad about all I'd been suffering physically and emotionally. It affected her more strongly than I had imagined. My father, on the other hand, tried to stay calm and supportive, but I could notice his contained rage, even if he didn't express it directly. I won't deny that having them here makes me feel better. It's like we're living as a family again, with the difference that my brother is married and I'm in a wheelchair. But we have breakfast and dinner all together, so that's something very positive. Yesterday, the divorce papers were officially filed. My lawyer suggested serving them to Carla at her workplace, which seemed cold and harsh to me. So perfect. Serving the papers at her work creates an official record, making it harder for her to claim she didn't receive them. According to the server, Carla was very surprised. Apparently, she burst into tears and ran out of her office. I wasn't there to see it, but I've been told the details. Last night, Carla showed up at my brother's house, completely beside herself. I don't even know how she figured out where I was staying. Nobody told her, although it was easy to assume I would be here. When she knocked on the door, my brother started recording everything with his phone. More evidence for the divorce. The scene was like a nightmare. Me in a wheelchair, unable to escape from a threatening monster. She alternated between begging me to come back home and threatening to destroy me in the divorce. At one point, she even tried to blame me for her infidelity, saying I had been emotionally absent during my recovery. It's hard to be emotionally present when you've been left alone in the hospital while they play happy house with the neighbor. My father, who is one of the calmest people I know, finally had to intervene. He asked Carla to leave before things got more out of control, and he did it firmly to avoid more scandal. My brother made sure to save the recording and already sent it to my lawyer. Today, I discovered something else that left me speechless. While reviewing our finances, I noticed that Carla had been gradually transferring money from our joint savings account to a private account over the past few months. This coincides with the beginning of her romance with the neighbor, so we know perfectly well where that money was going. I immediately notified my lawyer, who is already working to freeze our shared assets. Fortunately, my disability payments and workers' compensation are deposited into a personal account that Carla cannot touch. It's another level of stress, but at least I discovered it in time before she could do more damage. In the legal realm, Jeremiah's ex-wife delivered on her promise and provided the documents. This man is disturbed. His pattern of behavior is identical to what happened with Carla and me. He moved in next to her while her husband was deployed on military mission, inserted himself into her life by being useful, and gradually manipulated his way into destroying her marriage. Her story seems an exact reflection of mine, and it's chilling to see how calculating he is. She even offered to testify if necessary, although my lawyer believes we already have enough evidence to support my case. The hardest part of this week was going back to our house. I needed to retrieve more of my things, and my brother insisted on accompanying me. I could have gone with my father, but he offered to do it. When we arrived, Carla was home, and we realized she had been close to a bottle for some time. What happened next is something I'll never forget. She started taking my medical items, like the walker and therapy bands, and throwing them around the room. These were things I needed to complement my rehabilitation. She was screaming that I had made her a prisoner in our marriage, and that my injuries were a burden she had never accepted. My brother recorded the entire collapse while helping me collect my belongings. We packed what we could and left. My parents are still here. My mother has been wonderful, helping me with physical therapy exercises and making sure I continue with my recovery. She just needs to wake me up at 5 in the morning to be my drill sergeant. Just knowing she'll be here makes me feel less overwhelmed. My father has taken care of some of the logistics, like contacting the bank to ensure everything is protected. I don't know where I would be without them or without my brother. I couldn't ask for a better family. Update 3. The divorce process has officially begun its legal route, and my lawyer is very confident that things will be resolved in my favor. She is requesting a fault divorce based on Carla's infidelity. That would be ideal to protect my assets and leave this marriage with as much as possible. We are also requesting temporary alimony due to my disability and Carla's evident abandonment during my recovery. No one wants to go through a legal process, but my lawyer is excellent, and that reassures me. She has already filed a motion to freeze all joint accounts and prevent Carla from continuing to divert money, and she has gathered all the evidence of infidelity to support our case. Knowing that I have someone fighting for me makes me feel less helpless. Something I didn't expect was the reaction from Carla's family. Her sister, who is friends with one of my cousins, found out everything and told her parents. Carla's father, who always treated me like a son, came to visit me yesterday, and when he entered, I could tell he was barely containing his emotions. He apologized over and over, saying he couldn't believe his daughter had done something like this. He even offered to help me with legal expenses. Although I declined his offer, I was moved by the gesture. It was bittersweet. He is not responsible for Carla's decisions, but seeing his shame for what his daughter did made me think that it's the same as what I would feel if I had a daughter who acted that way. After our conversation, he had a beer with my father. I still can't drink. I'm still taking some painkillers. There have also been consequences for Jeremiah's. According to my former neighbors, he packed up and left in the middle of the night a few days ago. News of the affair has spread throughout the neighborhood, and apparently, some neighbors sought him out to demand explanations. They are men who also have wives and don't want someone like that nearby. I don't know where he's gone, and honestly, I don't care. If we need anything legal from him, my lawyer can locate him. Carla continues living in her own world where she still hasn't accepted that she has ruined everything. I'm following my lawyer's advice to document everything without interacting with her. I'm glad she likes to talk because that only makes things worse for her case. An unexpected positive side is that my physical recovery has improved since I left the toxic environment of our house. My physical therapist says my determination and progress have increased, notably in the last week. Now I can walk short distances with just a cane, although I still depend on the wheelchair for longer journeys. My employer has also given me good news. They have assured me that my position will be available when I'm cleared to return. There's still time for that, but at least I know I'll have a job. They also put me in touch with a support group for people who have suffered life-changing workplace injuries. This group where we meet to talk helps tremendously. You can't imagine how much. Even the elderly couple living next to my brother's house has been a great help. They've been bringing homemade meals every night. It's not that I don't like how my sister-in-law or brother cook, but this elderly neighbor cooks as if she could cure diseases with her dishes. I can't help but think about moving across the street and calling them mom and dad. Parents, if you're reading this, I'm joking. I love you very much. But even you know you'd like someone to cook for you like that every day. I've also been doing therapy to process the accident and infidelity. I've never been one to seek this kind of help, but so much has happened in such a short time that I wouldn't have made it alone. The divorce process will probably take months, so don't expect news soon. To all of you who commented on my original post and updates, I want you to know that I'm very grateful. There's not much I can do sitting here with my computer. I'm already tired of watching series and movies, but logging in and reading your comments is comforting. I'll post another update when there are important developments in the divorce process. For now, I'm temporarily saying goodbye. Update 4. Here I am to tell you what has happened in all these months. First, my physical recovery. I'm already almost at 95%. I've only been left with a slight limp when walking. I'll start working in a few weeks, although at first, I'll only perform some basic tasks until I'm 100%. I suppose once at work, my life will start to seem normal again. Now I live alone, after moving out of my brother's house. When he jokingly told me he wouldn't miss me, I replied that I would only miss the elderly couple next door. He responded that next time I should get another cameraman to record my ex. We both laughed because he's not exactly the person with the steadiest hand you can imagine. The divorce is completely finalized as of 2 weeks ago. I've kept all my personal assets, while others, like the house, were divided. Neither of us wanted to keep it, so it was sold. The bank was paid the corresponding part of the mortgage, and the rest was divided. The judge also awarded me spousal support, since she was the only one working during my accident, in addition to considering her infidelity. Who hasn't lost sight of Jeremias is his ex-wife. For those who have asked for more details about her, she was a wife whom Jeremias was unfaithful to until she discovered it and they ended up divorcing. When she heard he was repeating his pattern with another married woman, she located the woman and her husband, a deployed military man, to alert them. When the husband returned from his mission, he lashed out at Jeremias, who ended up in the hospital. Not as bad as me, but a broken jaw and a couple of broken ribs are no small matter. He didn't want to press charges against the husband, and Jeremias left town shortly after. I wonder how this guy manages to move so easily. He probably works remotely. I'm not interested in finding out. Life is starting to seem normal again, and that's something positive, although it means stopping posting here. I won't deny that I'll miss it,